Hey there, Saints fans. So, two preseason games in the books, and two very, very different performances for a lot of players. There's a lot to talk about. So, this is coming a little bit late. I was going to do it a couple days ago, but we recently went through an acquisition at work. It was a lot. I just didn't have time. And Patrick and Chris weren't able to make it tonight, so I wanted to make sure you guys got some content out this week. So here's at a high level, and we'll get into a few players specifically. Obviously, the two quarterbacks, there'll be plenty of time to talk about them. But just at a high level, here's what I thought from that game. Number one, it's always the caveat in preseason. Nothing is ever as good as it looks, or as bad as it looks. Ever. So guys will look like superstars, and guys will look like turds, and then they'll play in the regular season, and it'll invert, and some players regress to the mean. Some players barely play in preseason, and all of a sudden they're getting tons of snaps in the regular season, etc., etc., etc. One thing we, as fans, always kind of have to try to remember is the point of the regular season is to win games. The point of the preseason is to prepare and to evaluate. That doesn't mean in every game is every player working on a specific technique or a specific set of plays, and that's why they didn't perform well. But it also doesn't mean that that isn't the case of, hey, we know you do A, B, and C really well. We want to get you some live reps to work on D, and you need to just work on D. And that's all you're going to do. I don't care about the results. But you need to work on it. You need to get used to it. And this is time where you can make mistakes, and we can work on them, and we can correct them in practice, and it doesn't matter. So if we get too high on a guy or too low on a guy in preseason, always try to remember the point is evaluation, which means sometimes they're looking for things or they're trying things that aren't necessarily conducive to success, because this is the time when you can try them. Also, obviously, you don't game plan, you don't necessarily call plays, in specific ways to take advantage of the opposition, things like that. So, there's a lot of pieces going in. Now, all of that said, let's start with the bet. So, Teddy Bridgewater did not, understatement, Teddy didn't play well. He was sick. That was part of it. That counts. That matters. The Chargers have a very good defense. That matters too. But I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm never going to make a strong evaluation off of one game. He had some good plays this week. He had some really good plays against Minnesota. He had some not so great plays. I think there are elements of this offense that are in no way designed to go towards his strengths. I think there are some elements that are. He's obviously not Drew Brees. You kind of have to keep that in the back of our heads. Really, honestly, there's one play he made that really bothered me. So he had the play where he stepped up in the pocket, and Drew would have placed that ball just in front of Emmanuel Butler, and he'd probably still be running today. He's not that fast, so maybe he doesn't go all the way to the end zone, but that's going to be a big, big play. Teddy threw it 10 yards over his head. Just poor mechanics, not throwing well on the run. The ability to climb the pocket and make that throw is integral to be an average to above average quarterback in the league. You can't not be able to make that throw and be a good quarterback. Now, Drew makes the throw every time. Can Teddy make the throw? Yes. But that was the one where I went, if he can't make that play consistently, and that type of play consistently, forget an Eli Manning type quarterback, which is really what I think he is. He's going to have some really nice ups and some really bad downs, and he's going to be kind of average, but if you put some really good pieces around him, he's going to look good. If he can't make plays like that, he can't even be an Eli Manning quarterback. He might not even be an Andy Dalton quarterback. And I cannot possibly stress enough how bad it is to jump to conclusions off of a single game. But and especially much less a single throw. But with all that said, that one was concerning. He played like ass. Like let's just put it like it is. It's preseason. Don't get too high, don't get too low, but he played like ass. That said, let's focus on the positive at that position. Taysom Hill played great. But I thought Taysom played great in the Taysom way. Was Taysom carving their defense apart and just looking like the second coming of Steve Young and just picking them apart? No. But he showed real progress as a quarterback. Better feet, better mechanics, making reads, waiting for plays to develop. He did some really good things. And he creates some issues that other quarterbacks don't for defenses. So part of the physical tools and advantages he has allow him to be able to create simplified reads because he puts the same pressure on the defense that normally they would put on him, especially in those front areas. You have to spy. You have to have someone sit there to contain and to hold the edge because if he breaks free, he can run for 30, 40 yards, which we saw him do. But overall, I thought he played really, really well. He brought him back to win. He did what was asked of him. Of course, there's the caveat of he did that against second and third string players for the most part. That matters too. He also did it with second and third string players. That also matters. So not to push him too high or drag him too low, but with what he was asked to do and what he was given in the circumstance he was asked to do it, I thought he played very well. And he deserves credit for that. Now, should he be in the race for the backup quarterback? God, no. No, he's not there yet. 2 more years of development on the same curve we've seen over the last year, and maybe he could be a starting NFL quarterback, legitimately. But he'd have to have 2 more years of development with the same progress at minimum, and probably a little bit more. Am I saying he can't do that? Not at all. But has he done it? I don't think so. Teddy is still a much better backup because substance is more important than flash at that position, and consistency is king. And Teddy is going to be more consistently good and more consistently average, but less often great. And that's actually what you would prefer at the position. You don't want inconsistently average and inconsistently good, but occasionally great. That usually doesn't win unless you get crazy hot and you have an amazing defense and running game. Also known as the Eli Manning formula. Can it happen? Yeah. It's very rare, and you need the right matchups and the right time, and not to just completely shit on Eli, although he's massively overrated as a quarterback. He's as a pure passer, he's much more talented than Taysom. But to the point Sean Payton made before, Steve Young retired as the most accurate quarterback ever. Soon to be second when Drew's finally done. But he didn't start that way. Not close. His mechanics were terrible. He was not a good quarterback. And they really took a lot of time and they rebuilt him and he became an all-time great quarterback. And a huge part of that was having great weapons around him. I mean, that's part of the position for everybody. But, all in all, I thought Taysom was awesome and he deserved a lot of credit. I think in 2 games, to me, I think Harris has done enough to put himself in the driver's seat for the kickoff and punt return position. However, Sherrills is a proven producer at the position in live game, live action. So he needs to continue the performances that he's had in weeks 1 and 2, in weeks 3 and 4 of the preseason. He can't afford to have a bad game and put doubts in the coach's mind. He needs to consistently do the right things. Catch the ball, receive it well, leave no doubt of the security of the ball. Don't be Tommy Lee Lewis. And then also make guys miss. And you do that not just by being a joystick, human joystick, Dante Hall. There's a little something for the older fans. But also by understanding how to manipulate pace. Do I make a quick cut in? Do I need to cut fast? Do I need to shift my pace? Do I need to abuse this angle? How do I set up my blockers to create an opportunity to break a big one? Those are mostly instinctual things. Some guys have it, some guys don't. Tommy Lewis could run fast in a straight line and couldn't make someone miss to save his life because he was running away from people. Harris is running towards something. And because he's running towards something, he's able to focus and react and create those opportunities for himself. And I've really liked what I've seen from him. I've been very impressed. Now, if at any point he can do something on an end around or any type of play like that, he's going to make the team. If you bring additional value, even just as a gadget player, just the threat of that play, especially for a guy who is an actual threat on punt or kick returns, that makes you show up more on tape. It makes teams respect you more. It makes you matter more. So he was definitely a positive. Believe it or not, Divine Ozigbo, or as I call him, antidepressant, because I swear Ozigbo sounds like something that you would see advertised at like 11 o'clock at night on television. I was very impressed with his performance. I really was. I think he brings more than Washington, but the question is, can he bring any special teams value? Because Washington does. I think he is convincingly the better back between the two. And the reason for it is his feet. Washington is a one cut and go back for the most part, at least from what I've seen from him. He's got good power, runs hard, seems like a fairly smart guy. But he doesn't have those quick, soft steps to be able to maneuver in traffic and make people miss and make something out of nothing. And he does have burst, but Ozigbo has more burst and more quickness and is very shifty. And he's also a slasher, which fits the type of blocking this line likes. He runs pretty hard. The only reason I'm going to give him a semi-pass, it's a semi-pass, on the fumble is, number one, it looked like he slipped. And Zach Streif was talking about it. A bunch of people were talking about it. The field conditions there were crap. And that definitely has an impact on footing. A lot of guys were slipping all day. For the record, that potentially, I don't think it did, but it may have impacted the throw I talked about from Teddy earlier, but I really don't think it did. But he kind of slipped, which means that he was just kind of going down and the ball's there, and that's just fresh meat for the linebacker who had a clean shot on him. And put his helmet right on the ball. By the way, Perryman, who's very much a hitter and a good player, that matters. Put the helmet on the ball popped out. He fumbled. Now, at the end of the day, he should not fumble. But the fact that he slipped and the way that it happened, I do think that's something that Sean Payton's going to factor in. I do think it's something the coaches are going to factor in. I also think the fact that he came back out there, still kept running hard, even though they were lighting his ass up, was running hard, was getting popped, kept playing, caught that touchdown. I think that matters. But I am not going to be surprised if he makes this team as the as the third running back. I could see him making it over Washington. If someone else steps up on special teams and they feel like Washington is, replaceable in that area, I think Ozigbo is the better runner and has the higher potential. And I wouldn't be shocked if they went with him. Still 2 more games, still a lot to see. I mean, if he has 2 more fumbles or bad stuff like that, he's gone. We know how Sean Payton is with that. But as of right now, I like him a lot. I thought he did good things. Of the wide receiver group, first 2 games, and to be fair to them, they haven't played a snap live with Drew, and they haven't played a lot with Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Jared Cook on the field with them. And that matters because all of these guys are going for the 3rd and 4th wide receiver spots. And that guy, that player, is going to get a lot of their opportunities off of those other guys. So, are they studs? No, because they'd be winning on their own. But I'm not going to kill them and the hype train is stupid. They're not doing anything and this and that. Well, The other guys that make their opportunities easier and will draw most of the attention aren't out there with them for most of this time. And yes, that matters. And when they're having practices in camp, all the times we're hearing them making plays, especially Emmanuel Butler, those guys are out there at least part of that time. So it does matter. It's not the only thing that matters, but it does matter. And I do think if Teddy Bridgewater throws an accurate pass on that play where he stepped up in the pocket and threw it over Butler's head, I think we look at Butler very differently. If he catches that and breaks off a 30, 40, 50-yard play, and all of a sudden we're talking about this great play he made instead of the pass that he dropped, which was a drop, he's got to own that one. But all of that said, I think the guy that's impressed me the most is Simi Cobbs. I really, really like the way that he runs routes. I like the confidence. I like the physicality. I like the way he catches the ball. I don't know if he's going to make the roster. I don't think he will. I would love it if he made the practice squad. And I could see him being a guy that maybe partway through the year or maybe next year makes the team and actually has an impact. Big body, smooth operator, good hands, plays smart, plays tough. And he's still got 2 more games to make some noise. Austin Carr, look, he looked awesome with the Patriots, 2 years ago in preseason. That system is really good for slot receivers, and so it's going to make a guy maybe look a little better than he is, or at least accentuate what he's good at. Our system's a little different. Better or worse, not really what we're getting into, but it's just different. He really didn't do shit last year. Drew was even talking about it in an interview. It takes time for guys to pick this system up. Usually it's after a year and a half where it really starts to click. Maybe he does something, but until he actually does things in the regular season, I really don't care what he does in preseason or training camp or how great he looks. The same thing with Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson's been lighting it up in camp, and he's been playing very well in the games. But I don't want to hear about him until he does it when the snaps matter, because he is the quintessential almost guy, and he was as a rookie. That playoff game against Minnesota, he blew an open sack. He had Sam Bradford. Or sorry, it wasn't Sam Bradford. It was the guy, I'm farting his name, the guy that Denver signed that wasn't worth the money they gave him, but they gave it to him anyway. The former quarterback, I think, was from Houston. Whatever. He had him dead to rights. Missed the sack. A couple plays later, the stupid play happens. If he makes that sack, the game's over. So, as much as people wanted to kill Marcus, Trey Hendrickson did as much or more to lose that game for the Saints by being an almost guy. And again, I'm not using this to shit on Trey, but I'm just saying this is who he has been. He's been a guy who's a good athlete, who works really hard, but just doesn't get there soon enough or doesn't complete the play. He almost makes the play, like Ken Crawley almost catches interceptions. That's just what he does. Unfortunately, Ken Crawley does not almost get pass interference. Speaking of secondary players, another guy that really, he's been making plays all camp. He really came on strong toward the end of last year. Von Bell is making a lot of noise. And Von Bell is trying to force the Saints to pay him. Or at worst, he's trying to force someone other than the Saints to pay him. And we'll see, how Gardner Johnson develops and Hampton and some of those things of whether or not, they do decide to extend Von Bell. I certainly wouldn't be against it. That this is not the time or the place for that conversation. But, a guy in a contract year, sometimes guys play at their best when everything's on the line, and this is a lot of money. There's a huge difference between being a $30-40 million player and a $5 to $10 million player. That's a lot of money. That's generational money. That matters. It matters to the players. It matters to their families. It can matter on the field. So we'll see. We'll see. What kind of stuff we get out of Von Bell. But I'm loving what we're seeing so far. I'm a little concerned about the injuries at linebacker. I'm a lot concerned about our depth at tackle. Um, those are two things. We'll see how the last 2 weeks goes and if they're able to get somebody healthy. One thing we'll also see, there's a lot of teams that are losing corners, and the Saints have a lot of secondary guys who can do stuff. They've got 3 guys that can play the slot. They may be able to flip one of those guys for a backup tackle, before the start of the regular season. So, we'll see if any moves are made. I'm not predicting anything, but I'm not going to panic until we kind of know what the final 53 is and then kind of how things stand there. But it's definitely something that's been concerning over the last 2 weeks. By the way, nobody don't at me if whatever the PFF grades are. If you watch the show, you know how much I don't respect their grading metrics, even though they are an unbelievable source of statistics. They're bean counters. They're really, really good bean counters. Their grades are crap. It's almost obligatory for me to get a shot in at PFF per podcast. But other than that, Dan Arnold did nothing for me. Lil Jordan Humphrey made one more play, so he is the new Brandon Coleman. He makes one play a game, and they're usually a big play, and then he poof disappears. I have him slated in as a practice squad guy. That said, I mean, if he went for 5 catches and 80 yards and a touchdown though in Game 3 or Game 4, he could very well change that. He does seem to be a guy who's a gamer, and he makes his plays when the lights are on. He was kind of that guy in college. So we'll see, but I fully expect him to be kept on the practice squad. I don't think anybody's going to poach him, and I don't think he's going to be able to beat out Butler or Cobbs, and that's really who he's fighting for that roster spot. Really, other than that, not a whole lot to take. It's the second preseason game. There was some good, there was some bad. It's a tale of two halves, yada yada. There's a lot of cliches we can kind of go into on that, but at the end of the day, we didn't lose any key players. Craig Robertson got hurt, but I don't consider him a key player. He's an important player. Don't get that twisted. He's a very important player, but he's not a key player. Craig Robertson doesn't decide your season. He impacts it, but he doesn't decide it. And I do hope he's okay. I haven't seen anything about exactly what's wrong with him yet or not, but sometimes when you hear nothing, it's fine and they're okay. Like Anzalone, I'm 99% sure is fine. Sometimes when you don't hear anything, it's because they fear the worst and they're trying to figure it out. So it's Sean Payton. It's injuries. We'll know 6 months after. But bottom line, that's really just my quick thoughts from the second preseason game. All in all, looking at it through the scope of you're looking for assessment, you're looking for analysis, you're looking for coachable moments, and also moments for guys to make a statement and stand out. From that perspective, I actually thought it was a good game. It wasn't an enjoyable game to watch, especially the first half. It wasn't a fun game to watch, but it was good for evaluation. And that was kind of what I tweeted out during the game. I'm kind of glad the first half went the way it did. I'm kind of glad the offense stuck up the joint. I mean, the reality is, you had 2 turnovers within the 10-yard line. You score on those 2 possessions, it's a totally different half and a totally different narrative. Gardner Johnson just completely whiffed on a tackle, and special teams got too aggressive. Caused a return touchdown. You change 3 plays, 4 plays maybe, and it's very, very different. And then obviously that's a trap because you change 3 or 4 plays in any game and it's probably different. But it's like I said, it's not as bad as it looked. It's not as good as it looked in the second half. It's somewhere in the middle between the two. But just from an analysis and an assessment and a coaching standpoint, I think that it was a good game for the Saints as a whole. And as a closing note, Cam Jordan, for God damn it, stop doing fucking handstands in practice, because I swear to God, if you concuss yourself or sprain your neck landing on that shit, I love how goofy Cam is, but stop. Bad Cam. No hurt self. Um, but that's gonna be it. I'm gonna wrap this up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tried to keep it relatively brief, which by me standards means I only talk for 25 minutes. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Looking forward to taking a look at the Saints. With the actual starters out there a bit in the third preseason game. I'm sure Greg is going to send a billion and a half blitzes because he can't help himself. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I'm slowly starting to look forward to the regular season. Hope you guys are too.